So today's topic of conversation.
I'm crying already. Is that good?
Do you want to enlighten the people with what we're going to talk about today?
Hear me now.
Enlighten them.
All right. Here's some sermon for you. Here's some gospel. So today's topic, we've been deep in the trenches this week with our coaching group, and I feel like we hit on an interesting topic and hit on a bit of a nerve because it's been ringing true for a lot of people, and it's a topic of practice. And it came about through a conversation of just me being observational on my own career and the career of others. Something that I see is that I just don't think people practice their craft enough. And it came about in terms of people wanting to get better at their skill set. But with skill set, if you want to get better, there needs to be an element of practice. And that goes for anything, sports, whatever trade you're in. If you cut hair, if you play music, you want to get better, you got to practice. And the conversation sort of then meandered a little bit into like training and where people train and stuff like that. And that's what I've seen a lot in the last, like, maybe, let's say 6 to 8 years, is that barbering has become this thing where you just learn like a couple of things and like you're done. And that's like just going to get you through your whole career. When I don't think that's the case, because we meet a lot of people that it's not working for. And so that begs a question, what else do we need to do? And a lot of the time it can come back to the simple act of practice. So that's the topic of today's podcast, is practice. And where I love, I'll go on.
I was going to say, I love cross-comparing industries, and cross-comparing like worlds in terms of like, let's look at what people are doing in this world over here and compare it to what we do here in hair and barbering. And when I reflect on my career, even as a cyclist, like I spend 90% of my time, I wouldn't say 90%, because cycling's quite a high volume of performance. Like I used to do 60, 70 race days a year, which is a lot. But still, most of the time spent in practice though.
So my question for you would be, and I love, that's why I bring that into it. It's like cross-reference to other industries, other sports, trades, whatever you want, whatever it is. Where would these people be without practice? And how much of your race days were practice? Were those days practice for you? Did you try new things on race day, or was that all done behind the scenes? And if you did try new things, what happened?
It was a mixture, I think, like one practice session or what is it, like one race day is like worth like 20 practice sessions, but the practice sessions still have to be there in order to be able to do it effectively on race day, because we only learn through race day, because that's when it matters, right? That's when it really matters. Same thing when it comes to cutting hair, which doesn't really matter unless you slit someone's throat with a fucking cutthroat or something. Then that's a bit of a problem. Then it might matter because you'll end up in prison. But when it counts rather than when it matters, it only counts on race day. We can be the best practicer in the world, but if we can't do it when it comes to race day, then it doesn't really have any relevance or context. And the same thing with hair, right? Like it's funny that you say this, because I did a lot of my practice on real humans, but I let them know what it was. I did a lot of hair for free at the start just to get the reps in, and I never picked up a mannequin head until lockdown. I never worked on a mannequin head until 2020. So I was only cutting hair for 5 years or 4 years by the time I picked up my first mannequin head and started practicing. But when I did, it took my skill set to a whole new level. I was kind of like a one-trick pony up until then. You know, I could do some mid-length haircuts. I could do some short haircuts. And the thing with short and mid-length hair is that you can kind of do it off of like feel and replication of a look. But when it comes to long hair, you can't replicate. You can't just copy, because quite often you can't see what's going on because the hair is so long. You can't see the detail in certain things. So yeah, I mean, look, I would try new things on race day, and I would try new things in the barbershop. But there was times when, you know, after hours, I would ask, say, one of my mates to come in, or whoever, I'd cut hair before work would start, and I'd try something new. You know, if there was anything new that I wanted to try, I would often wait, you know, until it was time to do it in a practice session outside of performance time.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think back to, I mean, you know, we've spoken about it a million times on this podcast, but you've had quite an unorthodox journey in this industry, and it's been awesome to watch. And I think something that attributes to the success of that is your previous relationship with training, though, and practice and understanding processes of things. And it's something that sometimes you can only get from certain things in life, like sports, for example. We both had sport upbringings. And there's an understanding of processes. And something that I observed, and as you were speaking there, what I observed with you is like, yes, you might have been practicing a lot when you were cutting on the floor or like doing clients, but you weren't trying to like do things outside of your realm. You know, like you say, you did do the certain few products that you were just really good at and you could replicate. And so trying to step outside of that, it would like put a big hole in what was actually going on. It would limit your ability to make money and all that kind of stuff. Now, you could probably get your way around it. But yeah, I rarely saw you go like and think, oh, I'm just going to do this thing just because I want to practice it, because you knew that it was time to perform, and how you perform is the way that you do things that you do well. But like early days in my career, you know, it was all about practice all the time. On a weekly basis, I would try and find people that wanted or would allow me to like do new things on them. So I would just try and find people, look, I want to try this haircut. Can I do it on you? Any spare moments that I had in the salon, I'd get the mannequin head out, even if it was just like practicing blow drying or something like that. There's always like millimeters that you can get better, just a little bit better, a little bit better. And then the way I was explaining this to somebody the other day on our call was like, the cool thing about practicing behind the scenes is that when you come to like game day, which is like cutting in the shop, you've already ironed out some of the things that could happen. And so, you know, the reason I put so much emphasis on practice is because sometimes practicing while you're trying to perform can slow you down. And everybody's in this game of like efficiency. They want to be able to work quickly and effectively and make money as they go. So there's always the unknown, right? So you could watch a hair tutorial, whatever. You could watch someone cut hair on Instagram, and that's all great. Really, really good sources of education. But then to go and try that in the salon, if you're not like a well-seasoned student of the game and you don't already know like some of the mishaps that can happen, it can slow you down, because you might go and put in that nice graduated shape on the contour of the head and then look at it and think, oh, that didn't do what I thought it was going to do. What do I do now? Whereas in practice time, you could have ironed that out, spent a bit of time reworking it. Okay, so if that happens, I've got to do it like that. If that happens, I could do it like that. And that will speed up the process. and help you make more informed decisions. Whereas if you're doing that in the shop, that's just going to slow you down. 100% is going to slow you down. And then your stresses, your cortisol is probably going to come up. And as we know, that dulls your IQ. And then your conviction's probably going to drop as well. And then this weird energy starts to build between you and the client. And look, yes, you can wing your way through it. You can. I'm not saying that's wrong. But I think when we're talking to like effectiveness and efficiency and moving with confidence and conviction, it just pays to practice. And then something that I was thinking about when you were describing like your race days and cycling years, and the same with me now with haircutting, I will try new things on clients. Why? Because I'm a seasoned student. I've made a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes, and I've worked out how to remedially cut anything I want to cut. If a line doesn't quite do something, I can fix it in an instant. If a graduation doesn't do something, I know how to fix it in an instant. But that is at different seasons of your kind of career and where you're at with your skill set. So yeah, reverting back to like where this conversation come from, we've been having conversations with people that want to get better, and they're only in their early stages of hair. And from recent conversations, certain people have been cutting hair for a number of years, and they said they've never practiced. They just left trade school and just started cutting, which to me is wild. And that shows that will come out eventually. You will hit a wall eventually. So yeah, I think your ability to practice on the job depends on what season you're at, how seasoned of a student you are, how well trained of a student you are, and what your eye can see and what you've already worked through in terms of challenges, and how quickly you can cut remedially. And that's one of our pieces in our 3-day course, is like, we'll teach you how to be, in a sense, a remedial haircutter. Anything that's there, we'll teach you how to know what to do to it immediately to get the result that you want. So yeah, I think that's why practicing is so powerful, is to, yeah, you get to, it's like what we say about creating your future in advance, right? You get to navigate in advance. You get to work out what could happen in advance instead of leaving it to the day. I know, I remember you saying this to me about race days. You'd go out and do the track like a day or two before, just to get, fuck that turn. Well, if I did that turn on race day, I might not have hit the turn properly, or I might not have seen that, or I need to ride on this part of the road and not that part of the road, because you're just looking for those seconds in between.
Here, we try to remove as many potential errors as we could, that are going to save us energy, going to save us time. We would go out and look at a course like a couple of days before, usually the day before, but we'd only go to like the really key points of the race. We'd go and we'd ride those roads just so that when we get there the next day, it's not a surprise. Because what do we know? Humans don't like surprises. People will say they like surprises, but as Kerwin Ray would say, but what if the surprise is you get home and your dog is shat in your pillow? It's not a great surprise, is it? So do we really like surprises? I don't know. But I think it's a mindset, I think ultimately it comes back to like a frame of mind and a mindset. And one great quote that we brought up with the guys during that same call was a Hormozy quote. And it's like, most people will be a lot further along the line in life, or most people would be a lot further into their career, and a lot of people would be more advanced in what they're doing in terms of hair skill set if they just stopped thinking that they were too good to do the basics. So I went around that in a very roundabout way, but most people would be a lot further along in life if they just didn't think they were too good to do the basics. And that was a classic Hormozy quote, that stuck with me and stuck with us.
Yep. I look at it in terms of like skill set as well. Just recently, I've been revisiting kind of like how I cut lines in hair. So just a straight line. And what sparked it, I saw Fraser Wallace cutting a line. And I think the reel, he just said, what is this? Like, he was just doing the technique and then asked people, like, what is this? What am I doing? And I saw what he was doing, and then I just sparked up a question on the line. Like, when I cut a line, I'll cut the line, I'll cut over the line and under the line. And I just asked him that. I was like, do you cut under the line as well? He was like, personally, I don't. He was like, I cut the line and on the line. I was like, oh, cool. So I'm going to go and revisit that and, again, simplify my process of cutting lines. See if I can, again, reshape and reimagine how I cut lines. I just think it's a great process, and it's like that book, you know, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Repair. What was it? Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Riding, or something like that. It's a maintenance. That's the one. It's about that guy who finds peace and lessons in repairing this motorbike, and it's the same with practice, right? If you're really aware and like conscious of what's going on, like practicing cutting a line, you can never do it enough because there are always lessons. There are always lessons in it. You can always do it slightly sharper, slightly more crisp, and there's always something that will reveal itself, and there's a lesson to cutting that line. And if nothing else, there's a bit of Zen in there. There's a bit of peace. There's a bit of meditation. There's like an active meditation. And that's where it can double up as well. And we can find the calm, the peace and the calm in whatever we're doing. Say we're cutting hair. And then that can translate into when game day, when we're cutting on the salon floor or the barbershop floor. We can find that peace and the calm in what we do. And I think when we're all more peaceful and calm, our work just gets a lot better. It's rare for me when I'm all jacked up that my haircuts are ever better. You know, it's always when I'm a bit more calm and a bit more peaceful. So yeah, even now, like, you know, I'm nearly 20 years into my career, and even now I'm still thinking, how can I make this process better? How can I refine it more? And practicing behind the scenes. And I think it translates into everything in life. You know, in a coaching group, we touch on all sorts of things. We touch on, you know, the numbers and the strategy and the models and the social media and the content creation. Like, all of those things are individual skills that we just need to practice. It's like me with taking photos as a photographer. You know, there's practice involved. You know, before I go and do a photo shoot, I'll set up a dolly head in my kitchen and I'll just start shooting some light on it, just to think, right, how am I going to move the light? How am I going to move this? What's going to happen? I'll just turn up on shoot day and be like, all right, I guess we'll just figure it out as we go. Because again, it slows you down. There's a lot of guesswork there as well.
It does a lot for somebody's identity as well. You know, practicing does a lot for somebody's identity in terms of feeling worthy of like getting great things. You know, like, of course people don't feel like they're worthy of charging $100 if they never practice, because they don't know. Like, deep down there's a knowing that they don't know. There's a knowing that, like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm kind of convincing and tricking people into thinking what I'm doing. Like, and I can say this because I was there. You know, like, there was a point in time in my career where I got really good at a couple of things, but that's all I knew. You know, it's all I knew. Like, I knew nothing else. Like, so then when I came to area, and I've spoken about this before a couple of times, but then when I came to area, I realized, oh, like, I've got a lot to learn here. But so does everybody else. Like, so does a lot of the other people here as well. Like, it made me realize that, and the more I exposed myself to, like, other people's stuff and other people's education and other people's work, I realized how little everybody around me actually knew. You know, there was a few people that knew a lot, but it's like, oh, well, it's actually not that hard to get ahead here. All I got to do is put some time into learning and practicing, and, you know, the profit is in the practice, you know, in a sense. You know, look at it now. Look at it now. Like, you practice enough, you get good enough at something that you get to then teach it. But going back to the Hormozy quote, is like, people think that just because I'm doing this and I'm busy and I'm successful, that I don't have to practice because that's for beginners and I'm not a beginner, and they don't want to identify with being a beginner, when really they still have a beginner skill set. They might be making the money of somebody who's got an advanced skill set, but they have a beginner skill set.
And it just makes every scenario like better, in my opinion, because, you know, you walk into that room or you walk into the barbershop or any new client and you already know you could deliver the product. That's where the conviction and the confidence starts before you even go in. Now, I've had it before where I haven't practiced enough. When like fading first came in, I'd be second guessing myself thinking, oh, can I do this? Like, I'm talking years ago now, but like there was more practice required and I was required to perform. And people were paying high ticket prices for these products, and there's guesswork involved, and there's second guessing yourself, and there's stress involved. But when you're practicing, you already walk into that room knowing that you can provide. You're like, well, I can do this. I know I can do it. And then the conviction comes in, the confidence comes in, and everything just is easier from that point. A lot easier. And I love another Hormozi quote. Thank you, Father Hormozi, for these quotes. But you know, he says, you want to get there. Do you want to get there twice as fast as everybody else? Practice twice as much as everybody else. Simple. Like, and I've put it out on an Instagram post before for any beginner barbers out there. In your first 3 years, practice 2 to 3 times more than everybody else, and you will be light years ahead of them. They'll finish their 2-year course or whatever, and if you've practiced 2 to 3 times more than them, they do 1 haircut, you do 3. They do 1 fade, you do 3. You're going to be light years ahead of them by the time you finished. That's just it. Repetition, 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 accumulation. Get those hours under your belt. That 10,000 hour thing is real. I'd go as far as saying it's like 50 to 100,000 hours. Like, if you can get those faster than everyone else, you're going to be light years ahead.
I can attest to that. In my second year of cutting, year 2, almost exactly year 2, I won that competition that you were also in, the Victorian Barber of the Year. So like that didn't come from me just doing the regular thing, you know, doing the regular TAFE course or the regular, you know, hair college course, whatever. Like, and just practicing once a week. It came from doing 60, 70, 80 haircuts a week. You know, doing it time and time again, and getting so good at understanding my own processes. You know, that was a good thing. I got asked a question last night by somebody on Instagram about like, what do I think is the single most important thing when it comes to haircutting? And I just said a process or a system. But then the question got reframed as like, why do you do it in the first place? And I said, to make money. Because, you know, you remove the money from it, I never would have started. Like, that's the reason why we all do it. And anyone who says that it's not is full of shit, because this is the thing. The passion piece that people go on about is to make up for the lack of profit that they're making. So I'm not making enough profit, so I'm going to disguise it and cover it up with passion and use that word to like self-soothe because I'm not feeling a certain way about this industry. And I've got proof about this, because I just read an email before we started this from, let me pull it up, from somebody in Ireland. And for anyone who thinks that that's bullshit, listen to this, because this is the reality for a lot of people. Hi Eoin, I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to reply. This is the guy who wanted to come to our 3-day course in Ireland. Life has been crazy lately, and I'm trying to conjure up potential jobs to make money. Caveat, which means he's not making enough money. To be honest, my experience within the barber industry hasn't been a very positive one since I began back in 2017. I've been promised certain things over the years that were never followed through on, and I feel like I've never been appreciated as an employee, and quite often felt incredibly disrespected and underappreciated by customers and clients. I feel like, why the hell am I doing this job? But it's really the only skill I have, and I don't know what else I could possibly do that would make me more money without me having to work all the time. I am broke, and at the same time I am time poor because all I do is work. Right now I hate barbering because I don't feel I've gotten anything out of it. I'm moving to Australia this year and I don't want to be in a job I hate out there too for shit money. Any advice that you have would be greatly appreciated. Now, if he was making $2,000 to $3,000 a week doing it, I feel like that would be a completely different email, because a lot of things have to happen to make $2,000 or $3,000 a week. You know, you've got to put a few things in place. You have, like, the respect is there. You know, if you're not doing crazy volume, anyone can make $2,000 or $3,000 a week if you're doing crazy volume. But let's just say he's doing a regular calendar week of haircuts at, like, you know, a reasonable price point. That comes with clients that respect you. So that is just a little bit of proof and evidence that, you know, add money to that equation and things would be a lot different, because with money comes the feeling of respect as well. You know, if people's basic needs aren't met, there's no way they're going to be passionate enough to even practice. Getting back to where we're going, it's like, well, why the fuck would I practice this? It's never going to make me money. They just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's why I was saying about the mindset piece.
Yeah. And the paradox is also, it's a tricky one, because I totally agree. It's like, if my basic needs aren't being met and it's not paying me, why on earth do I practice? But the paradox is, maybe you should practice a bit more, because who knows what's on the other side of practice. You know, there's also that, like, paradox of that whole thing. But yeah, I totally agree.
Or maybe just doing practicing the wrong things.
Yeah,
and this is the thing
Mosey
would say as well. It's like, if you spend all your time working and you're not making any more money, you're working on the wrong stuff.
100%. 100% agree. And I read a really
simple as that.
An interesting Instagram post by this guy, and, you know, he said, be careful where you go in this career. He said, because, you know, most people fall in love with a lifestyle before they fall in love with the craft in barbering. And I would kind of elaborate on that. I think most people fall in love with what they think the lifestyle is. They get sold this dream of what barbering is, you know, and forgetting that it can be that, but you got to put some decent work in and some decent practice in, and treat it like you're an athlete. I think, if, you know, this industry and this profession, whatever on earth you want to call it, yeah, I think it's like any trade, any profession, anything that you want to do in life, to really make it work and to get that lifestyle that you think it's going to be, got to treat it like an athlete. You got to treat it with a system and a process, and seriously, you know, taking it seriously. And I think we could help people like that in that email so much, because, again, a lot of that is not falling. You know, this is where the coach comes out in me, and I'm the same with you as well. There's mindset in there, there's story in there, there's limiting beliefs in there. It's not falling and meeting them in their story. You know, Paul Chek says it, one of the greatest life coaches on the planet. The best thing you can do for someone like that is not become one of them. So the best thing we can do as coaches right now is not agree or disagree. That's just reality for that person right now. But we know that it can be different. And you only need to tweak a couple of things. Turn the knobs a little bit. Move this one, move that one. And things can change. And we see this on a daily basis in our coaching group, right? The results and the wins just coming in every single week now, and it's just getting better, better, better. So yeah, you know, I think a lot of people do fall in love with what the idea of the lifestyle is going to be. And something that I have asked people in the past, which I haven't asked someone in a long time actually, is like, take the money out of barbering, would you still do it? Take the money away. And that's how I love to look at, like, musicians. You know, I love music. I love bands, right? Because they put a lot of effort into what they do. And I look at them and I think, take the money away from this person or this band, I reckon they would still do it. And like the people that love the music would. They're just like, I just love music. This is what I want to do. I want to spend all my time playing music. Well, I'd love to know in the hair world, take the money away, would you still do it? Because a lot of the times, if people fall in love with what they think the lifestyle is, rather than actually falling in love with the craft. And for me, I mean, you know this about me, I say it all the time, I love the craft of it, but I don't necessarily know if it's just hair itself. I think it could have been all sorts of things. I think whatever is like process based and something that could reveal lessons to me and strengthen my own psyche and my own disciplines, I think it could have been anything for me. I think that's why I've enjoyed sport. I think that's why I've enjoyed playing instruments. And I think that's why I enjoyed cutting hair, because they were all very process oriented. And they revealed things to me subconsciously. And then, you know, there's identity. I would have identified, I was speaking about this on the coaching call yesterday, I identified as the perfectionist for a while, or for a long time. I feel like I'm a recovering perfectionist. But yeah, there was like identity tied up in there. And not even as a hairdresser or a barber. It was more about, you know, the process and the craft, the thing that I was doing, you know. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there for people to focus on.
I would say that I'm not passionate about hair. I'm more passionate about progress. And it doesn't matter what the vehicle of progress is. It's like, if I don't feel like I'm making progress as a human, then I'm not passionate about what I'm doing.
You are exactly like me. I had this revelation years ago, right? I had that exact revelation. And I remember saying it to somebody. I was like, isn't it weird? The things that I've gravitated towards are things that have been really good at. Like, because it's like you've been a high achiever all your life. I've been a high achiever all my life. Anything that I've done, I've gotten really good at. But it was the early signs of progress that probably subconsciously kept me there. Because there's been all sorts of sports. I've tried certain sports and I've tried this and I've tried that. And the progress probably wasn't coming that fast. And subconsciously my brain went, nah, we don't want to do that. Leave that one. Nah, probably not that. Probably not that. So subconsciously, it's more of a selfish act of like following the progress. But you can go to the complete opposite side of that. And it's actually not that selfish. It's more of a development piece. It reveals to you lessons and ways you can strengthen your own psyche and your own practices and your own attitude to life. When at the end of it, all comes out in what we do now. I think that's why we're such great coaches, because we've spent time in those things strengthening our arsenal, not just on the craft of the thing, whether it was playing the sport, playing the instrument, cutting the hair. The craft just revealed to us what we're strong at and are almost like our gifts for the world. Processes, systems, being able to practice, being able to understand things.
Yeah, seeing progression in something, and it's one of the 6 human needs is growth. And I think that's like a big thing. It's like, okay, well, if there's no growth in something for me, I'm done with it. Usually if I can't, like, downstream, like we always talk about this as well, like we have a good ability to be able to see like how something is going to play out downstream. And like if I can't see something working out downstream, I just don't do it. We'll just stop. It's like, okay, if this isn't going to work in 2 years, well, why the fuck are we doing it now? So like, that's what we were saying to even our coaching group this week is like, guys, be the person that you are wanting to be now, because if you're going to end up there anyway, you may as well start now. If you're going to end up in a certain place anyway, you may as well start now. And it might not look like, say if you want to get to $100 and work 2 days a week, it doesn't mean you put your prices up to $100 and you work 2 days a week straight away. It means start the process now. Start the progression now. Start reverse engineering it now. And then all you got to do is take the daily actions that get you there. And I've always been good at that, like being able to see and visualize a result and work backwards from it. And like, know, okay, this is what steps we need to take in order to kind of get there. And I'm happy to keep learning along the way as well. And you know, and I'm happy to practice what I don't know in the middle in order to get there. You know, it's like, you know, we got into business. It's like, they don't give you a manual when you get into business and say, here's how it all works. You know, you just have to figure it out by yourself. And the longer that the overall system, the taxation system and everything else keeps us in the unknown, the better it is for them, because they make more money off us not knowing. So they don't easily hand over that information, but it's up to us to go out and actually find it. It's up to us to go out and actually, you know, get the coaches and put that stuff into practice and learn, and, you know, set time aside for learning and looking at business models and looking at different things. It's like, the way I treat business now is the way I used to treat hair. You know, that's why like hair no longer really excites me. I feel like I've got all of the progression I need out of hair to a degree. I keep topping it up, of course, but like I don't absorb many other people's content when it comes to hair. People ask me about this in Jakarta. I had a conversation with the guy who picked us up in Jakarta in the car, and he was asking me, have I seen this person's content online, and have I seen that person's content online, and what do I think of this and what do I think of that? Have I seen the DFS formula from Josh O.P.? And I was like, you know what the hell? I said, I've got my own formula. It's called the DGAF formula. I don't give a fuck. And and he and right now in my career, I feel like when it comes to hair, we've simplified it enough that we don't need to be looking for all of the new answers. Like, if anything, I want something that's completely unheard of and unseen, but like easier and simpler, you know. And maybe the DFS formula is that. I just haven't been curious enough to actually look into it and see what it's about. But like, somebody's told me what it meant, and I've forgotten it already. But if it was that good, that I wouldn't have forgotten it. Because like, I'm not looking to bring in new things. I'm actually looking to keep some space within here, because I know that in the business side of things and in the other areas of my life where I'm making progression, I need to keep my energy and space for that, because that's where I'm seeing the most results. I've got my hair skill set to a point where it's like, this does all I needed to do right now. And like, you know, I don't blow dry hair. Funny, because I used to work with Dyson. I don't blow dry hair very well. Long women's hair. I don't do, you know, longer women's haircuts or cutting the lines and cutting over the line and cutting under the line and all that stuff. I don't do that stuff very well. And I'm okay with it. I've actually come to terms with it. And I'm like, okay, well, look at football players. Look at cyclists. Everyone plays a role on a team. I was like, why do I need to do it really well when Leigh can do it really well? Like, I'll just put my focus into like growing our collective skill set, and I'll put my focus into doing something else that I'm good at. And Leigh knows that stuff already. So like, if it ever comes up in a class, like he can show people that. But most of the time, like that, for the average barber that comes to see us, most of the time they don't even need to know that stuff. It's all nice to know stuff. They need to focus on the need to knows more than the nice to knows. They're not even good enough at the need to knows yet. It's like, practice that stuff first. Like, this is the stuff that you're using every day. Like, worry about the fluffy stuff later. You might think that the answers are out there because you think maybe you're too good to practice the basics. But believe me, we say some pretty basic stuff in our 3-day course, and 3 days in we still see people struggle with it. So, I mean,
something that I think holds people back when it comes to practice is patience. And practice requires patience. And we're in such a fast-paced world now where everybody wants to be able to do things yesterday and be the best barber yesterday. And I just need to do this quick thing and I'm done. And then that's it. I'm going out making loads of money out of it. I say all the time, some things in life just take time, and it's the old cliche of like falling in love with the journey, right? Like we've heard it a million times, but maybe we need to make life just one big like practice ground, one big training ground, one big experiment. We're never not practicing. Yes, there are times when we perform, we deliver the thing exactly how we know how to do it. It's the same with us in business coaching. We don't give people things that we don't know what's going on. It's like, oh, try this. Yeah, never really looked into it, but try this. It's like, we don't do that because it's our time to perform. But behind the scenes, we're learning all sorts of things. And in our own business, we're trying things and throwing spaghetti at the wall. Did that stick? Did that work? Did this work? And boom, boom, boom. Like trying all these things. Practice. Life gets fun that way, Why not? I think we're here for expansion. We're here for growth. If the first thing we ever did worked, then it would keep working, but clearly that's not always the case because things keep changing and things don't work after a while. It's just such an interesting process, and I would love to see it come back into the hair world a bit more. It's just this kind of commitment to practicing. Look at the greats, look at Josh LaMonica, look at Mark Hayes, look at Dove Palmer, look at all these people. They have practiced a lot. There is no way you're cutting that clean just by the stroke of God. Like you just woke up one day and like God dropped scissors and comb in your hand and you're like this genius haircutter. That's practice. That's years of repetition after repetition after repetition. Constantly combing their hair, constantly cutting the hair, constantly practicing. And it's played out in our lives too, played out in my life. The more I practice, the better I get. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, so with practice comes an identity shift and, some confidence. And with the identity shift and confidence comes conviction. And, in order to convince people and, for lack of a better word, persuade people and like allow people to realize how good we are at what we do, we need to have a level of conviction in what we're doing and saying. And that will outweigh a lot of the skill set stuff as well. Like the conviction comes from the practice, ultimately, knowing that like I can do this thing and I can do it well. And I know it's cliche to say it, but like whether you believe you can do something or you can't, you are right. Like there's been times where like I'll start a haircut, like early days in my career, and I'll think I'm going to smash this haircut. Like this is going to be fucking nice. And that was the mindset. And then it was. Or there's times where I'd approach a haircut, like a longer haircut, for example, and I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that would come across. And I only ever had to go through those experiences a couple of times to realise, okay, I'm getting shown the red card here. I'm being slapped in the face again. It's time to make a change. Like, I need to learn this. So then I'd go and practice it. I would actually, it's funny that come up because in my career, I would often practice once I've seen the context of something. And I've always been this way since I've been in school, since I've been young. Like if I didn't see how I could use something in my life to benefit me or the people around me, if there was no context in something, I often wouldn't give it time or practice because I'd be like, it doesn't make... Like why do I need to know how to do a graduated bob? I've never had to do one. And I had to do one once, actually, on a girl who asked me to do it at an area, and I've royally fucked it up. And it was the worst experience of my life. And I realised in that moment, I don't want to practice this because I've got other skills that I'm better at. So like, I'll just niche down. Like, I don't need to know this stuff. So yeah, until something has context, I refrained from practicing it. And I would still say that that's the same today. Like, I'm not going to practice haircuts now anymore because I don't do haircuts anymore. Only when we do our 3-day course. And that's, the stuff that I do there is like on autopilot. It's automatic. It's easy. because I've done it so many times. And that's what we want to transfer. That's what we want to transfer, is the automation, is the easiness.
Yeah, I love it. And I think about that story. Is it of Kobe or was it of Michael Jordan when they messed up the 3-point shot in one of the games, and it was like a game deciding point or something like that, and he stayed back after the game for like 3 hours or something and just shot 3-pointers for like 2-3 hours, and he would do that before the game, after the game, and he practiced the thing that he needed in context to win the game. He didn't go and practice dribbling the ball. He didn't go practice the thing that he didn't need to practice. He practiced the thing that he needed to practice, and I love that. But what it also does is it all starts to join together now as a bit of a puzzle. What does that also do? If you're a barber or a hairdresser or whoever, and you're struggling with scissor work, or struggling with holding the comb or sectioning the hair, you're also, you go and do that. You just section hair for 2 hours. There's that much muscle memory that's just built up in your hands. Guess what? You go do that on Monday morning, and you're going to be a freak at it. It's just going to be like that much easier. And I feel like that was the magic of like Kobe in that moment. He would just go in, and his arm was probably just like, there's just muscle memory. He was probably just sinking them left, right, and center because that muscle memory had built. And then another piece to the puzzle is it does, again, affect your identity. You start to identify as somebody who can problem solve, who has the humility to go back to the drawing board and be like, you know what? I'm not too good for the simple stuff. I need to go back and practice. I'm going to go back and practice, because there's only one way the body ever remembers, and that's if you practice. And then you start to build up those neurons and those, what do they call it, when the memories start to build in your mind, the synapses start to join, and the muscle memory comes in, and the fascia layer starts to remember. There's all of that. And then when you go and perform, you're on fire, and you identify as that person. And once you get the positive reinforcement from that, you're going to start to enjoy practicing more. And life then becomes just one big practice. And then you realize, I could probably turn my hand to a lot of things, because I know how to practice, I know how to train, I know how to be a great student. I know systems, I know how to lock into a process. So it's just so many benefits from it, and that comes from business, and that comes from, as well, like something that we've been talking about a lot lately is like social media. Your first post might not hit, but that's the practice. Post again, change the thing, post again, edit it again, change it, post it, and all of a sudden you start to work out what actually works. And the muscle memory gets easier. Posting every day is a muscle. That, at the start, people think, posting every day, that's a lot. But you do that for a month, and they're like, it's easy now. I might start posting twice a day. Then you post twice a day. That seems like a lot. And then you do that for a month, and it's like, that's easy now. Maybe I'll go 3 times a day. And it's muscle memory. It's what we get used to. It's what we practice and what we condition ourselves for. It's just with everything in life. It just keeps going and going and going. And then the magic is in the practice, but the practice requires patience. I think if we can hone a bit of patience, and I'll draw another parallel. It's like in the yogic world, in the meditation world, it's always called a practice, because it can always be strengthened, and it can always be better, and there's always a lesson to be pulled from it. You never master meditation. It's never over. You never master yoga. It's like, it's just always a practice.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's interesting.
And then what happens? So in meditation, what is the practice? The practice is mindfulness, creating space between you and your thoughts. But what does that's the practice. But what happens when you perform? The performance is in your everyday world. Your awareness, what we always talk about, you can catch your thoughts in the moment. That was the whole point of the practice. It's very hard to become more aware without practicing becoming more aware. It's very, very hard, unless you were just born onto this planet as a little Buddha. Really hard. So when we go into those moments and breathe and calm our nervous system down and notice the space between us and our thoughts, that then comes into our everyday world, and we can catch our thoughts, and we can catch our moments and our stresses and what's bothering us and what's not, and maybe what we should do next. That's the performance part of meditation. And then as you do it more, it strengthens and the muscle gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And then eventually you walk around the planet and not much bothers you because you're always catching the moments between your thoughts. And I spoke about this on a podcast not too long ago, one that we recorded. And that's that is the magic behind how I cut hair. In the moments between the way that I section hair, the moments between the snips, the moments between my thoughts, there's awareness. Why? Because I've practiced it. I can catch. And in those moments, there's infinite space, infinite time, infinite information, and infinite creativity. Why? Because that's the moment things change. And there's infinite ways things can change. The universe knows this. There's infinite ways things can go. So that is the power of practice. When we go zoom all the way back out to a haircut, I know that there's like 10 different ways I can snip each piece of hair. I know that. Why? Because I've practiced it. I've picked the hair up and felt, that's what the hair feels like. There's about 10 different ways I could cut this piece of hair right now. And I catch the awareness in that millisecond. I'm going to cut it like this or like this or like this or like this. That's why it's so important to practice. And when you can move through the world like that, creating space between yourself and your thoughts, what you actually do, it's like you on a bike. It's like me playing a guitar, whatever. I can think, I'm going to play this note like this. I'm going to bend this one like this. Maybe I'm going to pedal like this today, or I'm going to put my weight here today. For this bit, I'm going to do this. It's like, it's so cool. It's so cool. And that's when the practice pays off. It depends what season you're at in terms of who you are as a student, how well that muscle's developed.
Well, quite often our own respect is the hardest to gain. And I feel like we only earn our own respect when we really know what we're doing. And that comes through practice as well. It's like when I see people picking up sections of hair who don't have a high level of confidence in what they're doing, I can literally see the second guessing happening. Like there's a kind of almost like a bit of a panic moment where it's like there's no conviction in it. And the reason Josh is so good, and the reason that Josh is down to his levels of conviction. He's not guessing ever. He's got the space to come up with new things. Every time he shares a new technique, tip, or whatever it is that he's doing, it's because he's had the space to be able to create that. It's not just like he's randomly done it. And like a lot of the time, people will randomly just create nice haircuts. It's like, I hope this one's going to be nice. I'll tell you what, guys, hope isn't a great strategy when it comes to anything.
No, because then you got to replicate it then. And that's the beautiful thing about practice. You've got time to work out why it worked. You've got time to stand back. You stand there for an hour if you want. Say you cut a mannequin head. You just stand with your arms crossed for half an hour if you want. Just look at it and be like, how did that work? And you can just work it out. You can't do that in the shop all the time. You can, by chance do something really, really nice. But before you know it, the interaction's over. It's gone. It's walked out the door, taken the money. There's a million things happening. It's gone.
Can you replicate it?
And then can you replicate it? Exactly. Or like we were just talking about with Josh, when he's coming up with new things or original thoughts or different ways to do things, that's where practice comes in. Because you could take some time to look at it and understand exactly why it happened that way and worked. And then think, what if I change this piece? And then we practice again. What if I change this bit? And here you go again. And that's the cool thing about practice. That's why, you're seeing our courses. If anybody comes to our 3-day course, I've seen you do it. I've done it. We'll change what we're doing mid-haircut. Because someone will say, what would happen if you do this? And you'll turn around and go, do you want me to do that? Because I will if you want me to. And you'll cut the graduation different on both sides. Why? Because you know what's going to happen. You know the variables. You've practiced it enough to know what's going to happen. And that's conviction. When people say that, they're like, holy shit.
It's because we understand hair. It's like, it's one of the things, I wouldn't do that if I was only copying and pasting a process. Like a lot of the time when it comes to graduation and mid-length hair, especially, I see this in barbering, people are just copying and pasting a process. They're literally just copying what they're seeing without the understanding. It's like, this is just how you do it. And there's no room for variability then. You don't have any room to like move with like what's happening when the variables change, such as the hair texture, the hair growth patterns. Like So that you can't always replicate a nice haircut because all you know is a copy and paste template style of how to create a graduation.
And it makes our craft, in the art of what we do, very constrictive. It makes it very dogmatic, and it like constricts it to a box of like, this is just what it is. When it's just not. Like, the expansiveness of art is just so expansive. Like I've said, there's so much more we can do with hair. We've just got to see it that way. You know, everything's sharp, clean, tight, faded, this, that, the other, boxed, whatever. Is like, that's just one way of doing it. That's not what it is or has to be, or the true way of doing it. It's just one thing that we like right now, and it constricts it a little bit, takes the expansiveness away from it. I'm here for the more expansiveness. It takes the art away from it. It doesn't become art anymore. It becomes commerce. It's just, we're selling things, and that's fine. We might need to do that to make money. But we can also sell pieces of art, and it can go any which way. The universe knows this. It can go any which way it wants to. It just spends hair right now as we do it is just commerce. Like, we're just selling certain products, which is fine. But if it is that, get good at those things and practice those things.
And that comes back to that quote that we say a lot, you know, just get good at the thing. Because, you know, the thing that I see that holds most people back is a lack of confidence. And the lack of confidence comes from not knowing. And if we don't know, we don't have confidence or conviction. And that leads to limiting beliefs about themselves, which is an identity issue. So like, that's what I see as the roadblock. You know, we had this conversation with someone else recently as well. It's like, does it matter how good the product is in industry standards if it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is make you money? Because like, we can't avoid that either. Like, the reason we do it is to make money. It's silly to think that we don't do it to make money. And like, you can disguise it in passion all you want, but like, look at what happened to that guy who sent me the email. Things would have been disguised in passion since 2017. You know, I'll promise you this, promise you that, promise you everything. But then when it comes to it, it's like, oh, I can't pay you. But like, you know, barbering's such a craft that we're all passionate about. And it's like, no, you can't be passionate if your bills aren't paid. Passion doesn't pay the bills, guys. That's, you know, probably heard that one before, but it's true. Passion doesn't pay the bills. It can pay the bills, but it doesn't directly pay the bills. You can pay the bills through something that you're passionate about, but passion isn't always a good thing either. You know, passion isn't always a good thing either. Because what if you're passionate about crystal meth? It's probably not a great thing to be passionate about. You know, so yeah, absolutely. So even coming back to like the name of the podcast, right? Like the idea is to get people to a point where they're unlimited, you know, living life without limits, being able to cut hair without limits, you know, being able to have as many options as you possibly can. You know, options. Why would you not want them? There's nothing worse to me than a life with no options. You know, like I love waking up every day and being able to choose, like, okay, so what are we going to do today? Yes, we might have things put in our calendar like this, but it's like, what will I do after this? Like, where can we go? Instead of like being told, no, you have to go here. That's why I didn't like going to school. Never liked school. And I almost started to associate work a little bit with school. It's like, I feel like I don't have the option here, but to just go. And then that's when I start looking for progress. I start looking for progress somewhere else. Of course it is, because that's exactly the system that it's set up to put us in.
Yeah,
it gets us used to it.
Institutionalized systems, right? You do this outcome, and that's it.
Yeah, wild. But yeah, guys, and then, practice. You know, that's what I would say.
Something I'll just add to your point there of options is like the awareness piece is huge. Having the space in between your thoughts to notice the options as well. That's such a powerful thing. You know, that's a big thing in our coaching, is we create space for people. Most people are just so bogged down in the, what am I doing, that they don't have space to see their options. Because the options can be there, you just don't have space to see them. And that's a funny paradox, because some people think, oh, the options are only there for certain people. I think they're there for everybody. Can you see them? Do you have the space and the awareness? Have you practiced that muscle of being able to see your options? And that in itself is a practice. When you can practice that, that's when you start to set yourself free. And that's when the unlimited mindset comes in. Because in the space, in the moments, in the gaps, is unlimited time, space, energy, creativity, and information. It's all there. We've just got to take a moment. But we're not taught that. So I have compassion for anybody who finds that a bit weird. Yep, it's strange. It is a strange one, but everything, and this is wild, everything comes from those moments in between. Everything. Because it's from the moments in between that the things actually happen. How did someone decide that we needed to do the next thing? From the moment of space in between, where there's infinite knowledge and information and creativity. That's where it all comes from. So you want to change and create a different option? You need space. You need space to think about it.
Music is the space between the notes. Otherwise it would just be one continuous note, you know? How does music happen? Because of the space that's in between. Context. We got to know one thing to know the opposite.
And how did they know? And how does music know? And how does universe know? And how does spirit know what note to choose next? From the space in between. From the infinite knowledge and information and creativity in the space in between. It has a moment to decide of all the possible notes that there are to play. Along comes the next one.
Shit. So guys, we'll wrap up today's episode there, and we'll say, give yourself the space in order to be great. Give yourself the space in between the notes to practice. You know, profit comes from the practice. If money is your thing, it's just being better, feeling better every day, like feeling better about yourself because you know or have a feeling that you know what you're doing or mastering your craft, or you know, you want to feel a level of progress and like that guy said in the email, if you want to feel a level of respect from your clients, start by feeling it for yourself, because if you feel it for yourself, they will respect you too. Quite often it comes down to somebody respecting themselves, and our own respect is the hardest to gain. So by just being better at the thing, by being good at the thing, by putting the practice in and knowing that you know what your shit, you're instantly going to feel better. And if you need help with it, you know, or to find us, you know what to do. Any last words, Leigh, on that? You want to wrap up the practice conversation?
Yeah, you know, like Eoin said, it's powerful. You know, the profit's in the practice, but practice requires patience. And I think that's the formula right there. Creating the space, the time, the patience for practice. You'll notice your profits go up, not just in money, but in all areas of your life, your health, your relationships. You know, all of it. It will all get better. And that will all add to the piece of the pie to becoming an unlimited human. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Life is just one big practice. It's a practice. Life is a practice.
It is. So yeah, guys, like, share, comment. If you like this episode, tell us what you enjoyed about it. Share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who could do with practicing a bit more. And as always, stay unlimited. We'll see you on the next episode.